Are we really gonna do this? You're sure about this, Michelle? We're really gonna do a top 10 video of being uncomfortable. Well, here we go. Yoo-hoo, welcome back. For those of you who are new here to A Canadian Abroad, I'm Michelle, and today we're talking about awkward, uncomfortable, and sometimes just downright embarrassing moments that I've had here in London so far. There are a number of factors that contribute to feeling uncomfortable when you move to a new country. Heck, this can happen when you move to a new town, a new city, a new part of the country, let alone abroad. So as you watch this episode, I ask that you keep a few things in mind. This is based purely on my unique experiences and perspectives. I am not making judgments or assessments about London, the UK, or its people. I'm simply just pointing out the differences compared to what I'm used to. I'm not an expert, I don't pretend to be, and sometimes I get things wrong. Finally, I would love to hear some of your stories of uncomfortable or embarrassing moments that you may have had while abroad. Leave a note in the comments. Let's get uncomfortable, shall we? In my opinion, one of the best places to acclimate yourself to your new surroundings is the grocery store, or the supermarket, as it's called here in London. It is in the supermarket that you hear slang, learn new words, and explore foods that you've never seen before and you may never want to see again. Flashback to April 2021. Eric and I have been in London for about a month. The country is slowly emerging from lockdown, and I'm headed back to M&S for the third day in a row because I've repeatedly forgotten things off the shopping list. For the third day in a row, I struggle with the self-checkout, requiring support from the store assistant. The same store assistant, older gentleman, kind eyes, likely due to a combination of my accent, the contents of my bag, and my half attempt at sucking back tears, he calls it. You're new here, he says. It'll get better. I hope you love London as much as I do. Although having a store assistant call out your culture shock in the middle of your shopping trip is not particularly comfortable, it was comforting. This led me to feel an affinity towards M&S, and it also helped me realize that if I was going to adjust to this huge life change, I was really going to need to turn on my sense of humor. Hence this channel. I have encountered a new flavor of humor here, one that combines sarcasm, dry humor, self-deprecation, mild ridicule, and an incredible sense of wit. London has an extremely diverse population, so this certainly can't be said of all people who live here, and I also think that this is a UK trait. I first encountered this at the pub with new friends, then again at the dentist, and quite frequently at the gym, sometimes even mid-workout. At first I was taken back, like I didn't really know how to respond. Should I laugh? Should I make a joke in response? By the way, don't do that unless you are confident that your joke will be at least equally as funny. I even catch myself bracing sometimes for a quip when I'm in the presence of somebody with this particular superpower. I hope over time my sense of humor might evolve and become even a fraction as sophisticated as some of the things I've heard here so far. Another social interaction that at times has made me feel uncomfortable and honestly thrown me for a loop in the past is how people greet one another here. In Canada, we say things like, "Hey, how's it going? Hey there, what are you up to?" With the correct responses being good, you, not bad, not much, and fine thanks. Similarly to Canada, the greetings here are not necessarily an invitation to tell somebody exactly how your day is going. If they wanted to know that, they would specifically ask you. Some of the phrases I've heard so far are familiar. Hi, hello, good morning, although I have said that to somebody and they responded, "Is it?" To which I said, "So far so good." And there's also hiya and phrases involving mate. But the one that has left me feeling a tad embarrassed, because honestly I didn't know how to respond until recently, is "You alright, you alright, you alright." That's not it. It's not a y'all. One day I'll get it. I really don't use it enough. For some added context, if you were to say this to somebody in Canada, you would essentially be asking them if something is wrong. You're basically saying, "You appear as though something is wrong. Are you all right?" This is not the correct response. I now say, "Yeah, you?" Only took me 8 to 9 months to figure that one out. Now, in the past, I've lived in a non-English speaking country, and I can tell you that for some of us, learning a new language can be challenging. Like learning to say year correctly in Spanish, or risk telling your hairstylist that you've lived in Costa Rica for one anus. I can't imagine trying to learn English as a second language. I've watched it happen, and it doesn't seem easy. So I figured that moving to the UK would be a breeze in this respect. You speak English, I speak English, all good, right? But do I? Do I really speak English? I'm gonna say that I speak a North Americanized version of the English language, with an accent that I'm starting to hear as quite harsh. Put it this way, my Canadian English has required a few adjustments over the past 10 months. Courgette, aubergine, biscuits, shallots, crisps. Jumper. I frequently find myself in a position where I don't feel super confident as to how to say a word, a street name, tube station, you name it. I want to take a moment to thank the Canadian abroad community because some of you have been so attentive to my pronunciation and have helped me with this process. I see you and I am very appreciative. I know that my comfort with this will grow over time, and I am one of those people who actively try to assimilate even a little bit. However, this is a toque, and I will never call it anything other than a toque. Having moved from a country where pedestrians almost always have the right of way, with the exception of illegal crossing like jaywalking, being a pedestrian in London has felt very strange. I have even lost count of the number of times that a vehicle has tried to rush me through the crosswalk, or pedestrian crossing, as I believe they are called here. And for my North American viewers, some of the crossings here have very little warning, and also a very limited amount of time for you to actually cross the road. Like, sometimes you really gotta book it. I do not recommend getting into a conversation with a local about whether or not our North American sidewalks should be called the pavement, as it is here in England. No one walks sideways. Why would you call it that? Because it runs along the sides of the roadway. Just don't do it. There is a particular etiquette for efficiently making your way through London's public transport system. And when you do this incorrectly, it is noticeable and provides a particular sense of discomfort. For some, it's learning to stand right, walk left on escalators. Not particularly difficult for a Canadian, as many of our cities have this rule. For others, it's learning the flow of human traffic through the station or allowing other passengers off the train before you enter. But for me, it was remembering to check the balance of my Oyster card before heading to the tube so as not to be that person fumbling at the entry gate. Honestly, there is no greater giveaway that you are new, a tourist, having a bad day, or like me, a clueless Canadian, than holding up the crowd and trying to make your way back through the sea of people just so you can reload your card. Yeah, you don't want to be that person. You don't. There's a vibe. It's unique. Only recently have I been told that people here have kind of stopped using Oyster cards and they just use their contactless payment like they do for everything else, coffee, groceries, etc. So while on the tube, I often try and make conversation with Eric, which he actively tries to end. This is not our normal dynamic. Does he know something that I don't know? Yes. You don't talk on the tube, you don't make eye contact, or do a number of other things that I am still learning. This is one of those trial and error or ask a friend kind of experiences. Help me. I've noticed that the lack of eye contact thing is also reflected elsewhere here, like on the sidewalk / pavement, at the gym, etc. And I have a feeling that this is partially due to population growth, use of technology, like everybody's faces are like in their phones, they're just trying to get from one place to the other. I used to work downtown Toronto and it was very similar. You may have gathered that eye contact doesn't make me uncomfortable. However, when your group of mates inform you that it is mandatory to make prolonged and consistent eye contact for the duration of a cheers, I didn't expect to feel uncomfortable. They raise their glass, you raise yours, they lean in slightly, and without blinking, as if waiting for you to falter and break eye contact, cheers! I've gotten better with repetition. It's not weird anymore. One thing that can't be repeated is our first pub night in London. It started with civilized pints at a pub in Covent Garden and ended with a frantic shop at Tesco for a couple cases of Stella 5 minutes before the store closed. First, I was kind of surprised that pubs in London were closing around the 11 p.m. mark. Second, I wasn't sure how I felt about standing in a side street with a group of strangers to drink beer and sing O Canada outside the Maple Leaf. In hindsight, it felt unusual to me, but it was also really fun. Not fun enough to repeat. Having moved here from a country with fairly strict alcohol use laws, I really take pleasure in defiantly cracking open a can in the middle of a park, even though I still feel like I'm doing something wrong. Finally, we end our top 10 uncomfortable moments with coming on here and telling you about it. I suppose that's kind of cheating, but it is not the easiest thing to come on camera, online, and tell people when you feel awkward. I hope in doing so, I've shown you that it's okay to not know what you're doing and to feel uncomfortable when you're trying new things. You're not gonna fit in right away, and that's okay. Still new. Still have no idea what I'm doing. And just because something feels different to what you're used to doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. It's just different. If you are UK or London based or you've spent time here, I hope that you've found this episode amusing in some way, even if it's at my expense. If you want to see me try new things and explore London in real time, check out last week's episode where I learn a heck of a lot about the actual city of London. Or maybe you're interested to know what my first impressions of London were after first moving here. Thank you for joining me for another episode. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week.